other 10 that we tried was a big party afterward. So it was a lot of fun. We also do alcohol awareness. So in the state of Nevada, you need to get certified to be able to train to serve alcohol legally. So we do alcohol training. We're certified by the state also. And that's basically what we do. Anything under the sun that restaurants need to get done, they can come to us and we're all in one shop. So let's talk about my perspective and why I'm actually here. We want to talk about restaurants, and obviously a lot of people know that restaurants are one of the many businesses that are struggling in the United States. It's actually getting a lot of fanfare because they're adjacent to a lot of the things that we do. So my perspective is overall, number one, I am a local business owner. So we are here and we're struggling just as much as since we are adjacent to restaurants as well. Our business is directly adjacent to restaurants. So, if they're struggling, we're struggling. And being in Las Vegas for over 40 years, Las Vegas is having some tough times with a lot of the conventions and tourists canceling right now, which is affecting everyone, but it's really hit home to Las Vegas. So feel free to ask any questions. I'm going to offer some insight on all three of those perspectives that I have as I kind of go through this, but we're mostly going to be focusing about restaurants right now and talk about that. If you have any questions, shout them out. We'll get to them in the end. But as most of us we have a lot of friends and colleagues and places that we like to go to that are all struggling right now. So how can we kind of help be there for them, because they're hurting right now, they're struggling. We're going to need to work together in order to kind of get, up and going and where we need to be. I can speak for ourselves and here in the state of Nevada that we were on trend to have the best restaurant business in the history of our state. 15% of the job force in Nevada was going to be employed by restaurants. RHI, we were slated to have our best year ever. And obviously, and I don't have to tell anyone the sad story, everything was wiped off the plate within a matter of about 2 weeks. So, but how are we going to move forward? What's the restaurant perspective? What's the perspective of a small business owner? And just kind of have this conversation of that as we go through it. So sadly, what we read out there is maybe unfortunately true that about 30 to 50% of the restaurants that were open prior to February and March are going to be closing, about 30 to 50% of them. That's a pretty big number. And on top of it, and I got some of these numbers from the National Restaurant Association, is one thing that I didn't even really know is that 7 out of 10 restaurants in the entire country are single unit operations. They're not a big chain. They're not somebody who owns 5 or 6 bars. There's one person, which normally means it's a family or it's one of our friends or it's our colleagues. It's people that we need to reach out with, and that's their sole source of revenue. 7 out of 10, so 70% of restaurants in the United States are a single owned restaurant. And again, these are our friends, our colleagues, our favorite places that we want to go to. So, one of the big things that we're going to talk about is, maybe in January and February and the economy has been good, that a lot of restaurants just opened up and expected people coming through the door. And now every dollar is literally counting for these people. Every single dollar that comes through the door. So every dollar that you spend as a patron or as somebody who's going to facilitate business for a restaurant, everything is counting nowadays. So, it's wise to make a smart decision with your money because every single one of your dollar counts. And actually it's almost casting as a vote nowadays. We have an election coming up and we're not going to get into any politics during this, but your dollar is definitely going to count and help out as businesses survive. Therese, we should have played our cue music for the Friends theme song, but you said you were going to sing a little bit, right? Oh, you said you weren't going to sing. No, okay, all right. Well, we'll be there for you, and we want to understand the restaurant's next generation. So let's first talk about, we talked about the state of the restaurants, and sadly, only the strongest will survive. So we talked about this, and let's first talk about the customer expectations. So customers that are coming into the restaurant door now have a completely different expectation over that they have over for the past 5 or 10 years. A lot of people since March, as all of us have, we're doing virtual things. We're sitting at home, we're watching TV, we're spending a lot of time in front of our screens. So, we know in the restaurant business, a lot of us with the rise of celebrity chefs and the Food Network and Yelp and TripAdvisor, that a lot of us have come, kind of foodies that we're learning more and more about the business and more about food, and so are our patrons and their guests coming out. Well, guess what? Now, over the past 4 or 5 months, these same patrons are learning a lot more about sanitation than they ever wanted to know. What's the right thing to do it? Social distancing, what's a safe restaurant? What's a safe restaurant going to provide? So these people are now coming out kind of a little bit in full force to see what their expectations are, and rightfully so, because now their health actually has some kind of play into it. So they're learning more than they've ever wanted to know before. Many people haven't even, and I don't know how many of that we're speaking to right now have actually gone out to go eat or drink. My wife and I, we go out a couple times a week, just really, and we support local businesses only, and that's kind of what we've been doing. But a lot of people haven't gone out to go eat, and a lot of guests are seeing things consciously and subconsciously. So they're going out. So our job for customers coming is to make people feel warm and fuzzy and comfortable, because people have their different expectations. You know how everyone feels, and now that you're going out and you go to the grocery store, or you go to get gas, or you go to any public thing now, you're having a lot different perception of your normal public that's around you before. You know, before it was kind of, we all just walked and did our own thing. Now we're making sure that people are wearing their masks and socially distancing each other. But, you know, this is stuff that's coming, that's going to be coming from our guests, and both consciously and subconsciously. You know, that's one thing that we teach in RHI, is a lot of the things that we do are not just on the conscious level, but on the subconscious level, what people know that they're seeing, but they don't really know what they're seeing. They don't really know, they can't pinpoint it, but they know that they're seeing something that's not right. So, you know, what are people going to be seeing now? So, you know, I'll say here in the state of Nevada, and I'm sure every state has the same thing, that I have a download app to my phone that will tell me exactly where to go, or it basically tells me not where to go, I'm sorry, but it gives a GPS, and it's something done by the health department that shows all the places around in the vicinity of where I'm at right now, and it shows the health grade on there. So at this time and this stage, there's no reason why people should not be getting A's across the board. So that's how a lot of these customers are going to filter themselves. So if you're getting a B or C or struggling in health, you were probably doing that before you were closed down to begin with. So, you know, these are the places that you have to vote with your dollar to begin with. Now people are seeing a lot of front of the house stuff. Are my servers wearing masks? Are they speaking to me clear and present voice? Are they socially distancing themselves from other people? So people are seeing that whenever they come in. So, but let's talk about some subconscious stuff that people get expectations coming into a restaurant. How does a restaurant look whenever they come in? Maybe a lot of you who are or aren't in the business, you never notice, but I know whenever I walk into a restaurant, I look to see how the floor looks. I look to see how tabletops look, if they're clean. You know what? It's probably a good sign that if they're keeping the front of the house clean, the back of the house clean, and they're doing the right things as well. How about your uniforms of your employees? It shows how much people care. Do they have yesterday's soup all over their shirt, or some chili from a couple days ago, or is their apron dirty from wiping their hands on it? You know, those are telltale signs that you might not notice it, but these are things that you need to make sure that the restaurants need to make sure that their staffs are groomed and ready for action and take pride, because these are the things that customers are looking for also. And of course, the sanitation, the nonstop sanitation, and the squeegees and the buckets and things like that. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about some service skills that guests are going to be looking for eventually, that they might not be looking for now, but this is something that is going to come to the forefront about cross-contamination between guests, because I never know who's in my restaurant. I never know who's sitting on, I might be socially distanced from the other four top that's on the other side of the restaurant, but we don't know if they're infected or not infected, or even if they're sick. So how is the cross-contamination of the way the server is handling plates and silverware and napkins from one table to the other table? How is that contaminating? How are they able to do it? Because you can do all the sanitation and wear all the gloves you want, but if they don't have the right habits, these are the things that can actually really cause the cross-contamination of somebody that you don't know on the other side of the room. All right, we know restaurants have got a lot of challenges going on, so I'm just going to kind of explain a lot of them and what has kind of become warped over the course of time. So some of you might be a restaurant adjacent, some of you might actually have restaurants, but what has actually become some new challenges in the restaurant business that are now something a little bit more in the forefront. So those of you who have actually worked in a restaurant or know that there's always a zillion balls juggling in the air, right? There's always, you have to balance everything, guest expectations, food costs, beverage costs, you know, sanitation, you know, the parking outside. There's so many things to balance that always juggling all the balls. Now you have one more or two more or 10 more to throw in there. So with all these new sanitation expectations, I'm going to kind of throw this out there and say that, you know, wearing the mask is really only the major new sanitation protocol that I've really seen. All the sanitation stuff and cleaning stuff after the guest is really something that should have been done and should always been doing in your restaurant. It might be a little bit more at the forefront now, but you know, the sanitation should always be there. But the major thing that is challenging now is wearing the mask. But since everyone's wearing masks and everyone's got to start wearing gloves, and the warm and fuzzy feeling is one of the major challenges is our supply chain of the supplies and also the food and beverage. So a lot of restaurants that have opened up over the course of the past, they will say in June when restaurants really started giving permission to open up again. I know a lot of places that couldn't get something like Miller Lite, a beer bar in town that owns 7 different bars, couldn't get Miller Lite for almost 7 weeks because that's how the supply and demand chain was just broken off. It wasn't the supply wasn't being made, so it's not trickling down to us. And a lot of people who pride themselves in great ingredients, even pizza makers around town who get great cheese and great meat, they were able to get them, but now the prices are double and they skyrocketed through the roof. So if you're making a pizza and you think a pizza is just a pizza, but if you're using the right dough and the right cheese and the right ingredients, and all of a sudden your cost is double, are you passing that on to the guests and potentially losing them for forever? Or are you going to charge a COVID fee, or are you just going to bite the bullet to reach out to the community? So these are some of the challenges, and that's why you see a smaller menu at a lot of places that you've been facilitating for a long time.
So Mark, I have a quick question for you.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know if I saw you raising your hand or not.
Yeah, so here in Washington, the restaurants here are allowed to be at, I think it's 25% capacity indoors and 50% of capacity outdoors.
Sure, yeah.
How's that affecting cost? And we've got about 8 more minutes, so I want to make sure we cover.
Oh, got it. Okay. Oh, wow. I'm going along slowly there, huh? Okay. So, I mean, different rules have different states. My wife and I were just up in Tahoe, where California, we were right on the border, where California was dining outside only. And, Washington's got those regulations here. In Nevada, patios and inside are allowed at 50%. So okay. How does that affect your cost? I've been asked this question quite a lot. I've been on a few podcasts, and a lot of people, what I'm going to say is, it's depending on your business model to begin with and how you're managing those things. So yes, 50% cost, we're doing dumb math. 50% occupancy is basically going to create 50% revenue. So it's just a matter, your cost should still kind of be the same. Your labor, if you're smart, is still kind of the same, because you're just trimming those down 50% as well. But it's depending on your business model if you're going to be able to really feasibly make money on that. Mm-hmm. That make sense?
Yeah.
Great. All right, so also guest retention and retraining your staff. Guest retention, obviously every dollar counts now, so the guest that's coming in, one thing that I always say, and I teach at RHI, is the best upsell you can make is having your guests walk through the door again. So if it's a place that you've been to before and you're comfortable, go back there again. But these are some of the major challenges that people are having. Delivery service has gone up by 300% as far as sales are concerned. But we all know that Postmates and Uber, they're taking about 30% off the top on that. So make sure, you have your costing balanced correctly. Maybe you're raising your prices when you're giving menus to the other ones, or maybe don't even offer those services and have guests come in and do them for yourself. Government protocols is very challenging, and this is what we were just kind of alluded to. 50% occupancy equals 50% capacity. Now, a lot of restaurants are seeing things that they've never seen before. OSHA coming in on a regular basis, business license department coming in, and here in the health department, before you used to only have 1 or 2 people coming in to give you inspection. Now you're having 2 or 3 people coming in to give you an inspection. So these government mandates are just causing a little bit more challenge for these people. Masks, and then now all of a sudden you're not hired to be a security guard, but you are responsible for guest behavior, because we all know, if you guys are out there, 5% of people don't want to wear masks, and they're causing about it in your restaurant, and you're not hired to be that. But this is another thing that you have to deal with as well. And then the never-ending change in protocol, things of everyone, no matter if you're in this business or not, has gone back and forth several times on what you can do and what you can't do. The governor just had a speech here in Nevada about a week ago, and I'm still getting questions about what they are, what he really means on the things that he said. And this is a week later, so imagine the confusion that's out there as well. So, audibles, if you don't follow football, audible is when the offense comes to the front of the team, and he has his play lined up and he's got to change it at the last minute because he sees the defense is a little bit different. But what are some things that restaurants are doing differently? Obviously delivering service is through the roof, but you have to adapt to it or not adapt to it. Change your POS configuration. Liquor delivery is now a thing here in the state of Nevada, so people are doing that. You have to make your staff more efficient with better training, and with less staff as well if you want to generate your revenue. A lot of people are actually doing virtual online classes. We have a big booking agent here in the state of Nevada. I think it's actually up in Washington too, called secretburger.com. And they do about 4 or 5 different events where they do mixology and food events, and you can go and get packaged food from them and pick it up and bring it home and actually cook along with the chef. Here at RHI, we made a quick audible, and we actually do virtual classes with UNLV to keep the community engaged. We're actually going to be doing a rum and tiki drink, not this Saturday, but coming up next week. And I know a lot of restaurants are actually changing now because nightclubs are completely closed. I know that's a big livelihood for a lot of people and, nightclub adjacent businesses, but lounges, a lot of restaurants are now turning their after hours past like 10 or 11 o'clock to hookah lounges, to lounges with a DJ, because kids are still having the urge to go out to go drink, but they just can't go to the giants and they want to socialize and have a good time. So now restaurants are creating smaller scale nightclubs where you can order bottle service and order food at the same time. Us here at RHI, we've obviously had to completely change our business model because restaurants are down, no more hiring is down, no more people need to be trained, but we've implemented 3 new COVID courses. We've implemented a lot of our connections with the nonprofit sector who still need clients to get out to work and trained. We've done our alcohol awareness, and now we're starting to do a lot of job placement too, using our connections with the community, people looking for jobs and people in need of jobs. We made a lot of connections for that as well.
So, Mark, one question I have is, because everybody's been kind of pivoting, has one particular type of cuisine been affected more than others, or have certain ones been better able to adapt and keep thriving more so than others? I'd be interested to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I've been asked that several times before too. Cuisines are cuisines and only kind of deal with the food and the type of food that you're serving. So depending on how elaborate your food is, your health department stringency should go along. But what I will say is that probably the best places to solicit nowadays are places with kind of higher upper end service. Your upper scale casual, your fine dining, which there's not a lot of them about right now, but a lot of you should be dying to get out to go eat. I would probably solicit some places that pride themselves in service a little bit more, because this cross-contamination, their back of the house service and front of the house service are going to be very tight and very safe, and that's what you're looking for nowadays. So the places that are a little bit loosey-goosey, they might not know their regulations as much as something that's upscale, casual, or fine dining. So that would be my suggestion rather than a So, I'm going to kind of skip over this as I know we're running out of time. I want to talk about silver linings. It's not all gloom and doom. Again, we do a podcast every Tuesday, and we have a chef or a local restaurateur with us. So, and we always ask, what's the silver linings coming out of this? And a lot of people are like, I get to spend more time with my family. I've got to know the staff better now. And now we're like a family. And now we're like a bond as we're growing up. Now I'm learning my business a lot better. What were the chinks in the armor that I never saw before? Now I'm not just going to concentrate on one revenue stream. Now I'm going to, maybe I'm going to start selling alcohol. Now I'm going to start doing some more online classes once this is all kind of maybe passed or progressed a little bit more. So people are looking at more revenue streams that are coming through as well. A lot of people have become more adaptable. We've had a lot of old school restaurants here in Las Vegas. We're actually doing one of the oldest restaurants next Wednesday, and to train their staff just a little bit better. People are using this time for personal development. Again, I'm studying for my second level Cicerone. After this, I'm going to take a couple Cicerone and read some books. So I'm studying that. And, I would use this time also, there's a lot of people, you might think that you have it bad and might be tough right now, but I promise you, we do a lot of community service activities here at RHI. There's a lot of people that have it a lot worse than any of us. Maybe a lot of your restaurants that are struggling, that you have a network or a friend you can introduce to, or some kind of skill that can help somebody out. If you have some free time, reach out to them. Hey, maybe can I help you out with this? I've seen a lot of things on LinkedIn later that says, if you haven't reached out to me for a while, let me know if there's a network or something I can help you out with. Let's help better our community and better the restaurant. There's skills that maybe you might have that will cost you a couple hours just to help out a fellow colleague or a restaurant that might be struggling. So yes, go ahead.
We have about 5 minutes left, and okay. I know you said you wanted to take questions at the end. So
sure.
Do we have some questions? Or with some final thoughts you wanted to leave with folks?
Yeah, let me go ahead, and I just got one kind of, let's talk about the restaurant livelihood, about how we can all work together to not just survive, but thrive. And again, we've kind of talked about this, and And, again, vote with your dollar. We're all still going out there eating. We're getting delivery. We're still reaching out to our restaurants. Do your best. 7 out of 10 restaurants are individually single family generated sole income for the family. Get out there, and every dollar counts for these people. Now they're watching it very much. Patronize your colleagues, your people who have patronized you over the course of time. Patronize them. Go to your colleagues. Go talk to them. See if they're doing well. See if there's anything you can help with. That's how we're going to survive. Mentor someone. My wife and I both have a mentor from mentee from UNLV. Can you imagine what these people are going through right now? They just graduated from hospitality school, and then they just get thrown into this right now. They're going to need some advice and guidance, and we do interview coaching and mentee out there as well. I suggest everyone to do the same, because every college is looking for that, and high schools. And, just do your best to create a diversion. One of the things that I read kind of with all this thing started, I actually think it was Dr. Oz that I read, is he said the worst thing that you can do is live in fear. And again, I don't want to make it into a big political thing, but by now we kind of know the right thing and wrong thing to do. But don't live your life in fear. Go see your friends, go solicit businesses and colleagues and things like that. So do we have a few questions afterwards? I could probably talk for another 2 hours if need be, but if there's questions that we need to address, that would be great.
Yeah, so if those of you are in the session, if you'd like to take yourself off mute and ask questions, now is the time to do that. I know I had one question when we talked about when you showed the slide about 50% capacity is 50% revenue. Is it possible to make money? I mean, I think, I think the answer is probably yes, because if people manage their costs well, but curious about that part of it.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and that's why some restaurants haven't opened up yet, because they know their business model, and they say, you know what, we just rather would just pay rent, take it out of our savings, negotiate it with our landlords, and just move on with their lives and pay this until this is all kind of passed. But the restaurants that have opened up maybe have some better infrastructure, maybe they have a little bit more resources to deal with, maybe they have some better rent negotiations. But yes, it is possible. Again, looking over other revenue screens, and let's just do some dumb math, is 50% revenue again is going to be, you just got to control your costs better, and you have to control your labor better. And, does it leave some people out of work? But, I know a lot of places who have opened up their restaurants and they've kept their full staff on, and they said, well, now since we're going 50% staff, we're only giving you 2 or 3 shifts, but you're going to be just as busy as you were whenever you came in. And now these staffs and the restaurants are happy, because out of all the trainings and all the people that I've spoken to now in restaurants, that people actually have a very, not that they didn't necessarily before, but they have a very big appreciation of their job right now, because they can see what it's like to sit at home, and those guests that they were complaining about, for asking for the extra ketchup, or, for all these years, that now they're welcoming with open arms, and they can't wait to see these people. And I can't, express to everyone out here enough, go see your bartender, go see your food server, go see your friend who owns a restaurant. They might not say it, but they're hurting, and every dollar counts. And if they're doing the right things, use your dollar to go solicit their business.
Well, I think that's excellent. And we are right about at time. So I think we will close it there. And thank you so much for your time today, Mark. This was really interesting. I know that it's been a real struggle for the restaurant industry along with the rest of the hospitality industry. And, I know better days are coming. So,
well, we're all in the same storm together. I mean, it's affected some way or another. Some businesses is doing well. I have a friend who has an IT business, and he's done 3 times the business. My wife's brother is helps out with Domino's Pizza, and they're doing 3 times the business. Yeah. But everyone's been affected in some way or the other. But I mean, we're all in the same storm, and we just have to make through it together and use your skills to help out other people, because you don't want the same with you. So
that's excellent. Well, thank you again, Mark. This has been a really great session. I appreciate your time today. Thanks,
Therese. And right. The Rubik's Cube in the bottom right-hand corner gives me bad memories back from the 80s, because I was never ever to solve it.
Me either.
Hey, I have a quick question. This is Claire.
Hi, Claire.
Hey, this is my struggle with the whole restaurant space right now. Is sure. I do go out. Obviously, I'm following you doing a food and beverage session on catering, coming back, and I do a lot of culinary design, etc. And this is where and I've actually did a little YouTube on this, where I'm struggling a lot with the restaurant industry is, and I've been in different cities, I mean, around since COVID has started, is I find that a lot of times the servers in the servers, the kitchens are not paying attention to orders, because they're starting to hide behind it a little too much. That is, oh, it's COVID, we'll just get it out however we can. And their head's not in the game with giving good service and being on top of it. Or restaurants, and I can appreciate this part of it, wanting to make sure their people are making money, they're not staffing up accordingly. So these servers are stretched, and as a result are not giving good service. It's just something that I'm noticing, and it makes me mad, because they're expecting to be tipped. They're expecting us to tip over and above. And I'll give a great example. I was with an executive from Delta in Atlanta. We went to a very popular restaurant where we would sit down, have the servers come, and obviously deliver the food. That still can happen. But this particular place, you had to go up to the counter. You had to give your order to the bartender. They wanted huge tips. And then we went ahead, then they give you a number, they call your number, then you have to go to another station to pick up your food. There's no service there. And then there's garbage cans for me to throw away my stuff.
Yeah, and Claire, I think,
but why am I tipping on that? I mean,
I think that's part of the struggle that we all face.
Yeah, I mean, like I can have a 9-hour long conversation on service and service standards, and that's what we do here at Restaurant Hospitality Institute. I'm seeing a lot of the same things, and I was actually just interviewed in Las Vegas Weekly, and they asked kind of the same thing. And I'm going to say the same thing I said a couple times is, yes, we need to be understanding, especially if we are in the industry. A couple things that I will say is number one, for the time being, I think that you should, only the strongest will survive coming through. So there are a lot of restaurants, for as many restaurants that are not doing the right things, I can tell you equally as many restaurants that are doing things perfectly. And I'm sure that you can too as well, Claire. I'm going to say the bottom line is vote with your dollar. Go to the places that are doing the right things. Service training is my passion and it's my pet peeve. My wife can probably tell you a lot more than I'm expressing right now. But vote with your dollar, number one. And the first thing you said is a lot of people getting orders wrong. I've definitely been known to people who are not taking an order and writing it down. I will let them know. Can you please write this down? And we happened the other day and we got it around.
And Mark, I'm going to have to interject because we are past time.
Yes,
but now would be a great time if you wanted to pop over to Central Perk, then folks could follow you over there and continue the conversation.
Great. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, Therese.
Okay.
Talk about service. I get going. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, you've been great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks, give me just a second to do a little bit of housekeeping here.
It's just Erica and I.
And I'm working.